Our marketing is educational. We want people to understand whether they have a claim or not, because people are afraid to call a lawyer. We want them to know you're not wasting our time. It's worth a call. There's no shame in reaching out for help. So we want people to have enough information that they know that there's value to be had here.
Hey everyone, Bo Royal here, co-founder and CEO of Pareto Legal, a marketing agency that helps lawyers increase their profits with digital strategy, online advertising, and analytics. You're listening to the Pareto Legal Podcast, where we feature world-class attorneys, entrepreneurs, and legal experts. And today I'm joined by Shawn Wanta, a dedicated attorney and managing member of Wanta Thome, an employment law firm known for championing workplace equity and defending employee rights through class and collective actions. Recognized by super lawyers and the Trial Lawyers Association, Shawn's expertise in employment law has made him a trusted advocate for workplace fairness. I'm very excited to have him on the podcast today to share his insights and experiences. Shawn, thanks so much for being on the podcast today.
Yeah, you're welcome. I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. So let's jump right into it. Can you share a little bit about your journey into law and what inspired you to become an employment lawyer?
Sure. Well, a few things inspired me to become an employment lawyer, but taking a step back, why law? I was a philosophy major in college. I loved philosophy, and I did my honors thesis on justice in the Nicomachean Ethics. And it felt at that time the next step would be law school. And so I went to law school. I didn't have a plan to become any particular type of lawyer when I started. But through law school, I fell in love with a couple of things. One is civil procedure. So I knew I wanted to be a litigator, a trial attorney. I loved evidence, also trial attorney. And I was really drawn to employment law. And so those three things coming together made me an employment litigator.
And what specifically, was there any experience in your life that kind of made you realize, outside of being a philosophy major in college, that this was going to be a good path for you?
Part of what I really enjoy about being a lawyer is connecting with people, connecting with clients, connecting with our coworkers, and helping people at times when they feel maybe that they're lost and can't help themselves. I'm an analytical thinker. I also believe I'm a compassionate, empathetic person. And so I'm able to make the human connections. And so that has really drawn me into law, rather than the philosophical kind of academic side of thinking, which I love. But law is that bridge to human connections.
Agreed. You have to be willing and able to empathize and meet people with where they're at, get on the phone, speak with clients. I know I speak with a lot of attorneys that are like, oh, if I could just automate this, or if I could have this drip sequence so I don't even have to get on a call with them. And it's like, no, that's really where the value comes in establishing that relationship and making the clients feel heard and seen and comfortable through the process. So that's excellent. I wanted to ask about the firm's branding and their positioning. How has focusing on employment law and specifically workplace equity and class actions helped shape the branding and marketing for your firm?
Marketing for employment law is very different from marketing for personal injury or family law. Oftentimes, when people call our office, they believe something bad happened to them. They understand that something was unfair, things aren't adding up, but they don't have the whole picture of what was going on behind the scenes at their job. They don't necessarily know if there was an employment investigation, who said what their manager thought of them. And so people call us with the general understanding that something's not right. And it's our job as employment lawyers to help them understand, is this something that is truly illegal, or is this something that's unfair? In comparison to personal injury law, you know if you've been in an accident, you know if you've been hit by a car, you know if you're getting a divorce in family law. People have a defined legal need when they're contacting other types of law firms. With employment law, people don't necessarily know that they've been discriminated against. They think they have been. Most people know they were treated unfairly, but does that rise to the legal level of discrimination or retaliation? And so much of our job is actually done on the intake side. My friends who practice in personal injury have conversion rates of 50% and they're happy with that. Boy, ours is just 5, 7% tops. And I'm happy with that also. Part of our branding is that we want to be helpful for everybody. I want everybody who calls our office or texts with our office or emails us to be better off having contacted us than they were before they reached out. There's our internal marketing message because, we do have a dedicated intake team. We have dedicated paralegals who field phone calls and collect documents, but all hands on deck on attorneys for intake also. So we have all of our litigators participating in the intake process because there's such an interplay between, do I have a legal claim and, are you a client? We have to be able to know the facts up front. It's not something that you can go through mechanically. It's not something that can be automated. There's a lot of balancing tests in employment law. And so it's a different process. But our internal marketing is everybody should be better off having contacted us. We want to leave people better than they found them. We have a mascot in the firm. It's a chameleon. We call it the Karma Chameleon. But it's the messaging that we have. And we've branded around that internally. We have T-shirts made. We have little plastic chameleons. It's just become a thing. We have our bonuses. We use Bonusly for internal recognition. And we give bananas out, which are something that chameleons eat. So we've really tried to craft a culture around this chameleon. And it's why chameleon? It's because they're so adaptable. They can live in so many types of environments and eat a wide variety of food and survive in so many ways, plus camouflage and really meet people where they are. And so we talk about the Karma Chameleon because that's what we need to be. We need to be adaptable and meet our prospective clients where they are and continue evolving with those clients through their litigation. Because, when people are terminated for the first time, they might call us the same day. They may call us right before they're fired and say, hey, I'm being called into HR. Something bad is going to happen. And they're in a different place than they are 6 months from now when maybe they're looking at job offers. But we're in litigation and we're in discovery. And so we have to evolve with our clients also. And so that Karma Chameleon mentality is, be adaptable, but also we want to put good out to the general community. So we encourage people to call us, even if you don't have a claim. That's okay. We can help you understand that. And hopefully, our hope is that you'll at least be more knowledgeable after having called us.
Do you find that your marketing content at all is oriented around providing that value before someone even does call you? I feel like there's such a need, even more so for employment law attorneys relative to someone like, say, a personal injury attorney, where there's a lot more gray area seemingly. And with that gray area, it puts more onus on you with your marketing to explain some of these concepts and help people determine, to your point, do I need a lawyer or was I just simply treated unfair? Right. So how has that taken shape with your marketing content?
Right. It's a constant balance for us. We have two sometimes conflicting goals. The first goal is our marketing is educational. We want people to understand whether they have a claim or not, because people are afraid to call a lawyer. We want them to know you're not wasting our time. It's worth a call. There's no shame in reaching out for help. So we want people to have enough information that they know that there's value to be had here. At the same time, we don't want people self-selecting out of claims. We don't want them to read our webpage and say, oh, I don't fit that exact fact pattern, or I don't meet all of these elements, whatever it may be. Because oftentimes people don't know the reason that they were fired. They may not have the claim they thought they had. And we're able to discuss things that they may not have even thought of and start realizing. I can't tell you how many times it's happened that someone calls us with, for example, thinking they were fired because of their age, but really they were a whistleblower. It never crossed their mind that they were a whistleblower. But in many states, whistleblowers are entitled to legal protection. And that's the claim they had. And so we want those people to call us. We want people to call us if they sense something was wrong, because we can help them identify whether or not there is a legal claim. So when we're writing our content and we're doing our videos and all the omni-channel marketing that we do, it's a balance between we want people to know it's worth a call, but we don't want people self-selecting out. So we don't want to be giving, these are the only factors you can consider if you think you have a disability claim, for example.
Right. You don't want to be speaking in absolutes because obviously every situation is completely different, completely unique. That makes complete sense. And then the other thing I wanted to ask too, going back to what you said about, your conversion rates being low, and that's really just a byproduct of the practice area that you're focusing on. Do you find that a lot of the folks that, the 95% that you don't end up working with following that initial intake, have you found that some percentage of those folks ultimately end up coming back in the future? And then how are you staying top of mind with those folks?
Right. So there's a few things with that. So even clients who are not able to help when they call us at first, they may have a claim in the future, but what we see happen a lot is that they have colleagues or they have family members who may need to talk to an employment lawyer. And they remember their positive interaction with us. They remember that we were able to help them, even if we couldn't represent them in a lawsuit. And so it is being really good at intake is part of our marketing strategy. And how do we connect with those people? After you've spoken with someone and we say, I'm sorry, we can't help you. Here's some resources. We always provide people with additional resources. We don't say, you're out of luck. That's not helpful. So whether we're referring them to another law firm, a state agency, the attorney general, or whatever it may be, um, everybody who contacts us gets some additional resource, even if it's not us. So that goes a good distance to continuing the relationship. We make sure people know if your circumstances change, call us again. We're happy to talk to you again. If you learned something else, maybe they didn't have enough facts at that time. If you, talk to a coworker or if you get a text message, call us back. This isn't a goodbye forever. This is just, we can't help you now. And we do use an email newsletter that we share. Essentially, we're sharing our top blog posts in there, happenings within the firm. And particularly former clients like to hear who's had a baby, who's doing what in life, because we've made a personal connection with our clients. You know, they know what's happening in our lives, and that's a good thing. We want to continue that. And it's not because they're going to become a client again. Luckily, most people only get fired once. And often if it's more than once, I don't know that there's a legal claim we can assert for you if you keep coming across the same problem. So we do view our relationships as we're probably not going to be your lawyer again. But we want to stay in contact because we can be your child's lawyer, your father's lawyer. And we end up with a lot of family members actually coming to us that way, or spouses. And so keeping those connections either through the newsletter and also just being top of mind. We want people to follow us on social media, and we try to be helpful there, share updates. Every January, many state laws change in employment law. In Minnesota, where our primary practice is, we had some pay transparency statutes change. And so we had a whole campaign dedicated to educating people about what pay transparency is and why it matters for you. And that's not something that there'd be a legal claim over, but it helps people negotiate, job offers that they have in the future. So we're trying to be helpful within our subject matter expertise, even if we're not providing litigation or advice to them.
There's so many good nuggets to take from there. To your point, like viewing intake as still very much a part of the marketing process, I think is spot on. And it's a thing that too many firms ultimately end up neglecting. And they think, the onus is solely on the digital campaign or the billboard or the TV ad, right? And no, intake is arguably, just as important, if not more so important than all of those things. And then leading with value and deploying value, even if you ultimately don't end up retaining that client, right? And then building a relationship as well, and taking the long game on that, and honestly, not even expecting anything immediate in return. I just think there's so many good principles there at play that have probably resulted in cases, work, referrals for your firm. So I think there's a lot of good lessons there that our listeners can learn from.
Look, intake is always hard. Intake is always expensive in terms of staff time, resources. It takes a lot to run a good intake team. And we want to make sure we're being effective with that. So something we do is after every intake call, whether it's someone we're able to sign up or people we decline, we use HubSpot for everything. And so we use their survey feature or service hub. We send out a quick email. How was your call with whoever they spoke with? Smiley face, neutral face, sad face. And that is broadcast to everybody in the firm in real time. As soon as someone clicks their submission, and most people don't, but some people do, a lot of people do, it goes to a dedicated Teams channel. And everybody can see the feedback, any message that came along with it, and see who worked on that. And it's a good way to keep the motivation of the team going and showing that your work is having an impact on people, even though you've hung up. We follow up with that in email. It goes 20 minutes later. And that's been a good way to reinforce the importance of intake. And it shows everybody internally that we mean it. We are serious about intake. It is a big part of our practice. And so I encourage actually everybody to send post-intake surveys to PNCs.
Yeah, I completely agree. And for those listening that don't have that accountability and process in place, you probably have to some extent experienced, the occasional 1-star review where they speak with someone on your intake team and for whatever reason, the person they spoke with didn't, help them slightly to get closer to a resolution, even if that means, hey, there's some information online about this that you can read, or we have a partner that we can connect you with, or you can find more, about this on YouTube or whatever it is. Just sometimes requiring your team to not only empathize, but help the person that's calling get a little bit closer to a resolution, it can really go a long way. And then not only that, we talk a lot with our clients about like the importance of getting Google reviews in the first place. Currently, there are no restrictions around asking a Google review from someone that maybe you didn't necessarily retain as a client, but you helped them connect with another attorney, or you answered a bunch of their questions and that really helped them in their particular situation. That's a great opportunity to get some positive testimonial or review for your firm. So just really the key takeaway here is, especially for an employment law firm, you cannot sleep on your intake function. It's equally, if not just as important, or more important rather, than marketing. And you need to make sure that ultimately your intake staff is helping people that you ultimately don't end up retaining as clients. That can be a really winning long-term strategy. I want to pivot to more digital tactic focus now. So Shawn, in your experience, or rather the firm's experience in general, like what have you all found to be effective digital tactics for attracting employment law clients?
I've personally been working in digital marketing for law firms for 13 years now. And we've tried almost everything. And I love data. So we track everything that currently we're on HubSpot. I know where clients are coming to us from, whether it's organic, paid, social, and so forth. What we have found is, in terms of digital marketing in employment law, which again makes it, I think, a little different from other areas, is our clients have a general sense of something wrong that happened to them. And so our clients are using things like wrongful termination to find us. That is a meaning in common language that has no meaning legally at all. There's not such wrongful termination is never a cause of action you'll see in a complaint. It's not one. And so we've had to adapt our digital marketing to essentially focus not on the legal terms, but on the things people have experienced. And so that's what's top of mind. If you've been fired, it's wrongful termination. It's boy, unjust termination. It's illegal firing. It's words that you just don't, that lawyers would not use. So that's been helpful, keeping an eye on how people come across us. In terms of which channels are important, Google ads that continues to be a high volume of leads. I'd say a lower quality of lead, but a high volume of lead. Organic is still, in my opinion, the best place to invest in content. And then for employment law, LinkedIn is important to me and to our area because we're looking for people who have jobs, right? Our target client is more narrow than the general public. We need people who, are in the workforce. So we've already cut the population in half. And so in terms of social, LinkedIn is a place where we spend some time.
I'm glad you brought up the more narrow targeting of employment law. Do you find that there are specific industries, job titles, income brackets that you want to be focusing your marketing efforts on? And if so, are you doing that in those channels? Because I know you just mentioned like Google Ads, for example, it drives volume, but the quality is not quite there. I'm curious if you've ever tested like overlapping household income targeting so that you're going after maybe more executive type positions that are experiencing that workplace discrimination or wrongful termination, whatever it may be.
That's a good question. And something every marketer we've worked with has asked. And the answer is no. We're looking for people with jobs because one type of claim isn't more valuable than another. Someone who was sexually harassed working at a minimum wage job has the same case value as somebody who is an executive who is sexually harassed because we're going to people's humanity. And that's the violation. We don't put a value on our clients based on their income. That said, we do target people differently with different ads based on their role within a company, for example. It doesn't make a lot of sense for us to be marketing wage and hour violations to people on a salary, for example. They don't have an overtime claim, but hourly workers can have overtime claims. And so we're careful to not market claims to people who just objectively wouldn't have it. And we do limit geographically, we limit to our practice areas, and we pay to advertise in the metropolitan areas. And that again this is where our office is. It doesn't make sense for us to drive 6 hours to represent someone.
Can you talk a little bit about how you are marketing on LinkedIn? Because I do get this question a lot from all different types of law firms asking, should I be running ads on LinkedIn? How should I be measuring it? Because obviously it's so fundamentally different in terms of how, it's run and measured relative to something like a Google pay-per-click campaign. How are you marketing to your target audience through that platform?
I view it as a referral platform. I'm not looking to get clients through LinkedIn. I have not attributed a single client to LinkedIn, either as a first contact or second contact. We only track 2 levels. So we're not looking to have that conversion through LinkedIn. On LinkedIn, we're marketing it's top of mind, it's brand awareness. It's, do you know someone who is going through a hard thing in their jobs? We can be a resource for them. My hope is that anybody who's on LinkedIn who knows of someone, whether it's a friend or family member, who is having something going on with their job, or was recently fired or was not hired for some reason, that if we're top of mind there, we'll get a referral, whether it's a referral from an attorney or not. It's being top of mind so that people know, okay, I know an employment law firm. It's Wanta Thome. And that's it's something that you only need law firms like ours very rarely. One time in your life. Most people never need us, which is same to most practice areas. And so staying top of mind is so key for so many of our marketing efforts as to why we do community sponsorships, for example. It's not because we're trying to get everybody on the Frisbee team to have a discrimination claim. That's not it at all. We just want to be there top of mind and in the community. And that's true at LinkedIn versus any other community places. So we treat LinkedIn a lot like we would treat any other community, local or digital.
So obviously, the world's changed a lot over the last 5 years. How has your firm adapted its marketing strategy to, account for all the changes in consumer behavior, digital trends, so on and so forth?
The way we work as lawyers has actually not changed all that much since the pandemic within our firm. We come to the office, we come downtown most days of the week. We are committed to working together, dropping by each other's offices. So internally, there hasn't been a huge shift because teamwork and collaboration are so core to our practice, that we're not willing to sacrifice that. However, pre-pandemic, almost every client we had would come into our office to meet with an attorney and sign the retainer and bring in a stack of documents, and we'd scan them in, and they'd leave with a folder of information, a spoliation letter, bios of the lawyers, and so forth, like a marketing type packet, welcome onboarding packet. Less than half of our clients come to our office now. We have many clients who never come to our office throughout their case. We meet with clients on Teams or Zoom. All of our conference rooms are equipped with Logitech video bars and cameras that can follow around the speaker. So a lot of the mediations are happening on Zoom as well. So being able to meet our clients who don't want to make the trip downtown or can't make the trip downtown due to a disability or something has changed. And that's been great for us operationally because using digital retainer agreements now, we use PandaDoc, which integrates beautifully into HubSpot. So when someone signs the retainer agreement, it triggers some workflows that open files in our client management system. It opens a billing record in the timekeeping system. And we've been able to actually cut down on a lot of administrative work because of the move to, we don't need to see you face to face when we can see you over a camera.
I know you mentioned that, you all have HubSpot and you've clearly invested a lot of time and energy into getting that properly set up. To a firm that is kind of at the cusp of making a decision around something like that, and let's say they haven't even got something like that set up before, they're using spreadsheets or they're using like an outdated case management tool. I'm not going to name names, but we all know what some of the main culprits are. What would you say to them if they were to be like, well, oh, I can still get by with the way I'm doing things, or, oh, I can't justify the cost. What, in your experience, like, what were the benefits of that? And what would you say to someone that's hesitant to make that leap towards a CRM like a HubSpot?
CRM side, boy, I was the guy with the spreadsheets for a decade. Didn't work well. I mean, it worked. It did the job, but data consistency was never there. With SharePoint Online, multiple people can be in the spreadsheet at the same time. But for years, it was having to run down the office. Who's in that spreadsheet? You get out so I can edit it. It did not work. I've tried other CRMs. I think there's a lot of good ones on the market. HubSpot is not cheap. There's a free version. The free version does not work great for law firms. And you do need to hire someone who has a lot of HubSpot experience, usually a HubSpot Gold partner or Silver partner, to really build this system out for you. And it's constantly evolving. We have someone in-house who just manages our HubSpot now. And it's worth it, but it's a huge overhead. So I would say, if you don't know what you want to use, try one. See how it works into your workflow. Something online is going to be better than Excel. I mean, I can give names of other ones. We made one ourselves for a while that worked out really well, but the integrations, and so look for things that have a lot of integrations with the tools you use, whether that's QuickBooks for accounting, whatever you use for email marketing, if you choose not to use the Marketing Hub. But definitely having a CRM has improved our client service, but more importantly, improved our intake, because we now have a record of this person spoke to this intake paralegal. They took notes going through a structured playbook within HubSpot, which you have to be part of their enterprise plan to have access to. And then when they meet with an attorney, they have a record of all of the notes, but also all the email correspondence, any of the documents that they sent in. And so having that be our single source of truth for intake, for case management, case statistics, it's been a game changer for us. And it took about 1.5 years of work about 6 months of development. And then it really took us about a full year to get everybody within the firm bought in to it because people have to see value to the new tool. And so we've been finding that if the more we can integrate into one place, the more people are likely to use it. So task management is not going into HubSpot because it's a place people already are. So there's a lot of factors at play. So know your team also. Um, know what the interface is going to, how that interface is going to work for the people within your firm. Know the complexity of it. Know your tolerance for downtime. If you lose internet, you lose access to your CRM. Most people probably are fine with that because we have reliable internet. Maybe you don't. So, and I also say that using a platform that is widely used makes hiring easier because we can screen new intake paralegals, for example, of have you used HubSpot? Have you used Salesforce before? And if they have used one of those, then it's a really easy onboarding. And if they haven't, it's maybe not. Maybe there's someone else who has in that pool.
So many great insights there. The common thing we see too when it comes to the CRM conversation is firms sometimes think that a technology like that will make up for a lack of process or symptoms. And in actuality, it's supposed to enhance existing process and symptoms. Or systems rather. So it's like, if you don't have that dialed in already, or you don't have a vision of how, the intake process should go, how the case management process and the operations process should go, a tool like that is going to fall flat. You're not going to get the ultimate value out of it. And ultimately you're going to get pretty frustrated, 6 months into the integration, because you're going to be like, I don't even know what I'm building this for. I don't know what this is enhancing that I am already doing currently. So I assume to some extent your firm had a lot of, step by steps, had a lot of processes or SOPs in place. And then you added this to automate or simplify those existing processes. Is that correct?
Yeah. Here's what I would say. If you think you have good systems within your law firm, try to model them in a CRM and you'll get a wake-up call and realize your systems aren't as good as you think they are. Once you try to get them into a tool or even diagram them, put them in a flow chart first, you'll realize that there's so much opportunity to increase efficiencies, cut out processes, and really understand the flow that you've been going through. Something for us is our systems evolved over time. And the SOPs were drafted based on how things were already done. And so they were more descriptive than proscriptive in a lot of ways. And so by moving something into a CRM or a case management system, whatever you're going to be moving it to, whether it's Zapier or Power Automate, anytime you're going to be formalizing that process in a way that's not as flexible as language, you're going to find some places for improvement. And you have to be willing to do that, right? Some of the resistance to CRMs, at least in my experience, has been people who don't want to adapt their process. And in that resistance, you have to show people what's the improvement. We've improved our callback time. We've improved our response times. People need to be able to see, oh, all the emails are right in front of me under this person's name. Now I'm not digging through my Outlook searching for things. So showing the advantage to modifying the SOP is really key to getting the adoption. So it's a give and take. If you're not willing to change how you're doing things, you're going to fail at the CRM. If you're willing to take a look at your process and say, oh, this can be improved, or I have to tweak it a little bit because this tool will have this other benefit for me, you're going to be set up for success.
And you need to prepare your team for that cultural change as well, because it is a huge shift if you go from a spreadsheet run law firm to a CRM run law firm. To your point, you need to get that buy-in with people. You need to feel like they're part of the migration, because if you don't get them on board with that, that's going to spell other problems down the line.
For sure. We maintained parallel systems for about 4 months. So after we launched HubSpot originally, our operations team, office manager, receptionist, intake, and so forth, were still using our old system and doing double data entry because I think that was part of the psychological need of I'm not going to give up my old tool yet until this one's proven itself. And then within 4 months, the old system was gone.
Right. But at that point, I feel like people were probably saying, I'm done double entering things. Like I'm ready to just move to the new CRM. I think that's a brilliant way of doing it. It's almost like a soft launch, 4 month soft launch.
Right. And having people in the office who champion the new system, so there's peer pressure is a remarkable tool for system adoption. If someone goes to someone else and says, "Hey, where's the retainer agreement that John Doe signed?" And the response is, "Check in HubSpot." Pretty soon that person's going to stop walking down the hall asking where documents are. They're going to check HubSpot first, or the CRM, whatever the CRM is. And so it is getting that critical mass and getting the champions internally to recognize the benefit early and early adopt and help other people see the value.
We've talked a lot so far about, digital and technology and things that scale well. I want to talk about a couple things that don't necessarily scale, like, a digital campaign or a CRM. What role does community involvement, networking, outreach play in your firm's marketing strategy? And how do you manage and measure that?
We expect everybody to be, playing to their strengths. And so for some people, that means presenting at a CLE in thought leadership. Other people, that might mean going to a happy hour, a bar event, going to a lunchtime CLE. And so we've recognized that in terms of, or participant on a board, a community board, for example, we give people opportunities to be involved in the community in the way that they're most comfortable being involved. So, for example, I'm personally better one-on-one than being thrown into a 5 o'clock happy hour in a room of 300 people who I don't know. I'm not going to go talk to them. But if you put me in a one-on-one, I'll talk all day. The lunch won't end. So, it's knowing our strengths. And we've tried different ways of tracking it. Right now we have we call it a marketing scorecard. And we ask that people get so many points per quarter, and different things have different point values. So write an article in a magazine. That's where, I don't know how many points off my head, but that's worth quite a bit because it takes a lot of time. But at the same time, if you're someone who goes out and has a coffee with someone from law school or a colleague twice a week, you get points for that too. So we're encouraging people to be involved in the community, whether it's coaching a youth sports team or really anything. We're rewarding people internally for that. And try not to put people outside their comfort zones, because you're not going to do it. If it's uncomfortable, you're not going to do it. You're not going to make the best impression in the community either.
I love that. I think there's a lot of good principles there. Number one, it sounds like you do have a way to measure this in terms of the activities that people are doing to network and kind of help market the firm themselves. So like with that scorecard that you mentioned, I think that's excellent. Like it goes with the saying, if you can't measure it, you can't improve it, right? So like the first order of business is figuring out a way to measure, track, incentivize the activity that you're trying to generate more of. And then I totally agree with you with playing to your strengths. I too am the same way. You put me in a room of 300 people for a happy hour, I'll probably be, sipping my beer in the corner and be like, I'm ready to leave now. This isn't really for me. But when it comes to this type of one-on-one conversation, I can talk all day too, right? So this for me is an example, the podcast is an example of something that doesn't necessarily scale well, right? Because I can only do one of these at a time, and it takes a certain amount of preparation and so on and so forth. But it's something that I know I need to do to put, myself out there. This is also kind of killing multiple birds with one stone, right? Because you and I are speaking for the first time together. So it's part networking, it is part content creation. And then it also acts as the foundation for a lot of other content pieces. We were talking about this before I hit the record button, like cutting this up into shorter form videos, maybe repurposing it as a blog, right? So yeah, I think it's, to your point, just to kind of recap what you said, for a firm that is looking to do more with networking or community outreach, or doing the things that we said just don't scale. You have to have a way to measure it. You have to set a goalpost, and then you have to reward, the outcome. You have to reward, hey, if you go and meet, 10 new referral partners this quarter, that's going to be factored into your bonus, or whatever it may be. It's going to be factored into your scorecard. And just knowing that consistent activity, even though you can't measure it perfect in the same way you can measure a Google Ads campaign, it will have some halo effect. It'll have some residual effect on the firm's recognition, reputation, awareness over time. So I think the way you're doing it is the right way to do it.
It's omnichannel. That's it. My marketing mentality is to be everywhere all at once. Meet our prospective clients and meet their friends and family members everywhere possible.
It's a funny paradox that exists because, on one hand, it's very, very important to have all the proper tracking and attribution and all of that in place so that if you need to, you can kind of zero in on, all right, what's really kind of driving, my lead and case volume. But then on the flip side, you have to kind of acknowledge that all those systems are to some extent inherently flawed, like they're directional, and you have to recognize that there's still a fair amount about your marketing mix that you don't quite know about. So that omni-channel, be everywhere type of approach really is the right way to think about it. And realizing that, oh, hey, I've been running a billboard campaign for 6 months. I didn't get anything from it. I'm going to shut it off. It's like, you don't know that with complete precision. Now, if you're using a vanity number and you're expecting direct phone calls, okay, maybe, but then that's not the right tactic for that. So I think a little bit of a segue from what we were just talking about, but I think there's a lot of truth in what you just said, that you need to have this kind of everywhere omni-channel mentality and realize that a lot of what you're doing from a marketing perspective, you don't quite fully understand the residual effect it's having on the rest of the business.
Oh, for sure. I love data. I've wanted to make signs for my office door of like, show me the data. Like, don't even come in here until we talk about like the data. I love data. But at the same time, when we look at marketing, the whole top of our funnel, I don't even try to attribute a return on investment to it. It's not worth it. That's not why we're investing in brand awareness. It's not why we're investing in top of funnel. We're investing in it because we want to be in the community. We want to be out there. We want to be sponsoring teams and events, donating money to choruses and choirs and so forth. But we're not looking for an attribution to that. That's hard. And I hold Google Ads to a very different standard because that is a big part of their value add is the attribution. But even with, we don't run billboards. We run print ads, and I'd use a different call rail number on each ad to hopefully get a little bit of attribution there. It's not perfect. And definitely within the ad blocker world, I have a lot of trouble with call rail. People just aren't getting the number rotation through JavaScript. And so there's a lot of wiggle room even lower in the funnel. But top of funnel, I don't try, and that's okay. That is just part of that area of marketing.
I agree. And for anyone listening, that has been hesitant to invest in top of funnel, my typical recommendation is, putting aside a piece of your budget, a small portion of it, 5-10% maybe to start, and testing some different things like the different tactics that Shawn was just mentioning. It doesn't necessarily need to be a billboard. It could be a print ad. It could be, a multitude of different things. It could be a radio spot. It could be a sponsorship. But just starting to test and evolve a portion of that marketing budget away from just pure direct response, last click, Google pay-per-click or retargeting, those very, immediate fixed type of marketing tactics, and move more, depending on the firm's goals, obviously, more towards allocating some of that budget towards brand building and awareness can have a serious long-term impact on the growth of the firm. So I love all the topics that we've touched on. I know we have time for one more question, Shawn. I wanted to quickly touch on the firm's Google reviews. You guys have great Google reviews. 100, according to this, for your one location, 154 reviews, 4.8 stars. That's no small feat. And I wanted to ask, how does your firm collect and use testimonials in your marketing efforts? And do you have any tips for, doing that and making them more impactful in your marketing?
For us, having good karma is better than having Google reviews. The best advertisements we have are the people who go and tell their friends and family about us. It's people who unsolicited send us an email or a handwritten letter. We still get handwritten letters from clients thanking us. That's our focus. And I know that's not what I think a lot of law firms try to do, but we're not out there actively trying to get any particular type of review. We want people to be compelled to spread our message and to align themselves with our mission.
Shawn, thank you again so much for being on the podcast today. How can our listeners learn more about your firm?
Find me on LinkedIn, Shawn Wanta, or wantathome.com.
Excellent. Thank you again. And thank you everyone for tuning into this episode of the Pareto Legal Podcast. We'll see you next time for another episode.